Hello.
Hi.
Oh,
Hello.
How's
Can
everyone?
you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, perfect.
How
I'm
are
glad
you?
we were able to work something out.
Yeah,
Me
this is great.
too.
Wow. Josh, look at your background. That's awesome.
Oh, thank you. I have a lot of physical media, so I'm a physical media person.
That's amazing.
So me and Allison we're for Josh at the Movies, and really appreciate you guys taking the time. I know it's been a crazy week, so
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
Excited to be here.
Yay.
we're excited to have you.
Jonah's gonna sound so much better than us audio wise. Look at that setup.
Very legit. So Alice and I both agreed that Dating in New York was one of our favorite movies from Tribeca this year. I've seen about 40 movies.
Oh my God, that's crazy. It is crazy. Oh my God.
Congrats on the IFC pickup though, and can't wait for the movie to find a wider audience. What's been the most exciting part about the journey of this movie for each of you?
We had so much fun on set, and it was this small, like tiny, just little family hanging out. And then now that we have like fancy pictures of us at Tribeca, it's like, okay. It's very cool that people actually, sometimes you make something and you forget that people are actually going to get to see it one day, or so often you make something and no one ever does see it. So we're just happy that people are actually watching it and liking it. And it's just been so fun seeing the response.
I agree. I feel like that's
yeah.
Oh yeah, go Brian. Go Brian.
I think like this has been beyond any of, I mean, just like, it's just, this whole thing has been a gift, just how well it's being received, and the fact that it's, going to be in theaters and that it's in Tribeca. I mean, it's just, we made this little thing, and then all of a sudden it's just kind of, it's kind of like sometimes it takes years. I mean, it's like I've been in movies that took like two plus years to come out, and it can be a bit of a slog. So for this to have just kind of for it to feel so realized, I think when we saw the one of like when they were finishing cutting the movie, and we saw like finally when it was like kind of ready to show the actors, and we watched it, we were just blown away. It's how kind of realized it was. And I think from that point on, I was maybe more expecting what is happening now to happen. But before, when you're making it, you never know. You're just having a good time on set with the people that you like.
Filming it before the pandemic and then seeing an early cut during the pandemic, I was like, will we ever get to be inside, at dinner with our friends again? And so to celebrate the release of the movie by getting to see each other at the same time, it just feels extra special.
Yeah. I would echo everything they said. And also I think it's been really cool to like meet other filmmakers, and like I've seen a couple of the movies as well. And it's funny how there's a lot of through lines within these movies. Like I think I was watching the Hannah Marks film, and I think there's literally a scene at a diner where they're talking about what they meet, like the rules of the relationship. And I was like, wow, here's a completely different movie, completely tonally different. I guess it's a rom-com too, but like, yet they have this scene. So I think it's interesting to see all these films that got made at the same time, and like the cultural connections between all of them. That's been really cool. And just like meeting other filmmakers and getting to see each other again. I mean, a lot of us hadn't seen each other since we shot the film in 2019. So that's always a fun sort of reunion to get that back.
I do want to add really quickly to what you said, Kat, that I feel like when I was watching this movie, it was so much nostalgia for me, because I've been like, I live in a tiny studio apartment, and
Totally.
just everything like the infatuation reference, like checking all the restaurants to like where's the best place to go for a certain thing, and just seeing all the places, it just made it, I don't know. That's why I feel like I loved it so much, because it was all the things I missed that I haven't done in so long. And this festival specifically has finally gotten me to like leave the house and socialize again and like
Totally.
do stuff. So I don't know, but it was really wonderful for that specific reason.
And Brian and I keep saying, like, this is the summer to be in New York. There's no other place to be right now. It's where it's happening. And so to have such a New York movie coming out, it feels, it's our favorite place in the world. So it's awesome.
Yeah.
It's truly the best. I have a little icebreaker question that I'm sure you've probably gotten before for this movie, but do you have a crazy dating story to share?
Oh. Well,
I leave it to the queen.
I have so many. I'm like, where to start? I think that maybe the most interesting one is that I was trying to do an open relationship a few years ago, when I met Brian at a party, and then we started dating, and then fast forward a few years, we're getting movie married, which was very funny. So I thought, and I was cast in the film before Bri was, and so we didn't even, I think some people are like, oh, did you meet doing it? But we were dating before, and then Jonah brought us all together by chance. And so it's cool to make a rom-com with the person you're actually in romantic love with.
Oh, I love that.
Hope we
I
stay
love,
together.
yeah, if it works out.
Fingers crossed.
I know we had like a little get together last week, and I was like, oh, it's so good we're still together. It'd be so awkward if this came out and we had, if the pandemic had ripped us apart.
I like that, when we were making the movie, I was trying to think like, oh God, it's going to be tough to go on dates during the production of this film and even after the production of the movie, because people might, they ask, what's the title of your movie? And it's called Dating in New York. And they're like, oh, let me guess, you made a movie, you're going to make a movie about our date. And I think one of the interesting things about this is that like none of the dates that actually happen in the film are based off of anything I've ever been through. Although certainly some of them are like, we've all run into an ex somewhere, and we've all been catfished to a certain extent. We've all had a douchey ex. So there are all sort of these things, but the part that is deeply personal to like the connectivity of, my personal life when it came to dating was just the way in which it was told, which is like a sort of optimistic, positive outlook on relationships where, I think I've been criticized by some of my past lovers for living in a fantasy land, much like Milo, so that's sort of the interesting dating tidbit when it comes to the film.
I think what I like about the movie is that you can see where everyone's coming from, even if they're doing something you don't agree with, or you don't like. You're like, oh, but I get. It's just it's complicated, baby.
Yeah, I feel like the character motivations are very very specific and very clear. But that was a good segue into the whimsical feel of the movie. I loved how it was almost like a Disney fairy tale at times. Did you have a primary inspiration for what's essentially like a New York fairy tale?
Yeah, I think the tone was always like, that it all started with the music is the way you explore that tone. So like you start to temp scenes with stuff from, a lot of it was Marriage Story at first, which has a really great score. And then we went even more Disney, where we were temping with like the Ratatouille soundtrack, and then eventually Bella Notte, where they first kiss. That was the original like needle drop there. And then we couldn't do B-roll of New York because everyone was wearing masks. So we drew these hand drawings, which ended up working beautifully. Shout out to Katie Woodward and the drawings that I have up there. And then we're like, okay, this is kind of finding its tone, but the tone was always light and fun and like candy. And I think the Disney fairy tale, I'm just a Disney nerd, like straight up. Like I love those movies. And
Me too.
yeah, there we go. Yeah. And I think it's going to be a taste thing, right? But I think what interesting way to look at modern romance than perhaps through a lens of a whimsical fairy tale. That was just interesting. Like that was like, okay, by the way, you could make a horror movie about dating. That's, there's definitely, it's fun because you could take whatever tonal approach. It just excited me more to do something that was fun and poking fun at the fairy tale genre in that capacity.
I think there's so much talk about how like romance is dead and blah, 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 and dating apps killed everything. So I love that this is just like, has a happy ending and shows you, I start crying. Love is still real.
What I feel like is when we saw it and what, Jonah and Hannah and the editing team, what was just that fine line of kind of like I think that's what's so successful about the film is that it's not too much in either category. it's not too millennial and too my parents were like, it wasn't too jargony. No, my parents, my parents were like, we didn't understand a lot of the jargon, but that's okay. And I was like, well, everyone my age is like, thank God this isn't like only jargon,
Yeah.
or only like, what's it like to be like aggressively trying to be modern. That balance of the kind of fairy tale with all the modern elements is what I think is so successful about the film.
Yeah, there's definitely like a throwback feel mixed with the more modern, like the part with the text messages, like where it like zooms in and starts and it's like shaking. It's very very like grounded and different for being modern. It still feels very old school in a way.
Thank you for noticing that. I think one of the things pet peeve, just to say a pet peeve in our interview here, is when certain movies or TV shows will like just put text next to someone's face, almost like, you watch any of the like the how to all the boys I love, any of that kind of stuff where it's like, oh, they're texting, so it just pops up. And I remember even seeing in a movie called Set It Up, which was on Netflix. Shout out Netflix. Yeah, by the way, I love Set It Up, but one thing that I didn't love was there was a moment where he went to go text her, so they're in a relationship. It's halfway through the movie, and there was no conversation in their text thread, and I was just like, such a small detail that really could have been fixed.
Yeah.
So we took a ton of attention and time to look at the way that if you go back and watch the movie again, there's a lot of Easter eggs. You can look at the times, the dates, the messages, and it all correlates to the narrative of like the film. Like, February 14th is when he sends the I miss you text. That's Valentine's Day. Katie7F is her Instagram handle is Katie7F. There's like just fun stuff like that. But that part was very important to us in the post-production process.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
A big theme of the movie is about New York kind of talking back to you. Have either of you seen any signs or coincidences that felt like the city itself or your surroundings were like sending you messages?
Well, famously, Brian and I once broke up for like 2 months, and then I was walking down Fifth Avenue, leaving therapy, 3 cheers for that, and we ran into each other, and it felt like a total rom-com. We hadn't spoken at all, like we had not texted. It was just like on the street, and it was one of those moments where I was like, am I in a movie right now? And that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't been in New York.
Yeah.
Could you sense it? Did you think that perhaps you were going to run into each other? Like what?
No, it's always one of those don't you think it always happens when you're like truly not thinking about it, and anytime you're like, I might, then it never does?
I got off work that day. I got off work early, and I was going to a premiere that night. Brag. Wasn't in the thing, just got an invite.
Not as cool.
Not as cool, but I was wearing like a suit jacket. I was wearing like
he looked amazing. I looked
really
horrible.
Catherine
I think the first thing I said was like,
Catherine said, no, I'm supposed to be hot right now. Be hot for this. He was like, I'm on my way to Dry Bar. You had can I say this? You had shaved your legs that morning, and there was blood stains on your legs.
When you like shave too fast and it's dry and there's like blood running down your legs? I had that look, and I was like, fuck you, you're wearing a suit. Oh no. But somehow we saw past it.
I love that you like were like just in a tux for like, oh, you look like you're literally just like went to a black tie event.
It was crazy. It was like 3 p.m. I was like, what the fuck is this?
It was,
right. New York talking to me. I've definitely, I think in my case, it was a subway sign moment, which is ultimately made its way into the movie, where it was I think it was Grubhub or something like that. And I was like really debating texting this one girl that I had a crush on. And I was like, it was in my head the entire day. And I was on a subway, and I think it literally just said, like, her name was like, it was, I forget what I'm forgetting the moment, but it literally said, take out your phone and text her. And then it was like Grubhub, order your Chipotle, like, to come to your house. And I was like, what the fuck? Like, it was because it was just in my head. It was just like literally in my head. So that's where that entire ultimately thing came from. It's also like a light homage to LA Story, which is a great Steve Martin movie where this billboard sign talks to him.
Oh.
I haven't seen that one, but I will add that to my list.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah.
So I have a question. Do you think that Jessie and Hank move a bit too quickly, romantically speaking, or is the pace just right? Because I know me specifically, you guys moved in really quickly in the movie. I don't know if that would be something I would do.
Maybe a little fast, but when it works, it works.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think what is
He's having a panic attack now because we don't live together yet.
I'm like, don't blow up my spot. No, I think it's fun about our characters is that they're these foils to the main storyline, and that it's kind of like everything they can't do right, everything they do wrong, we do right, and they just can't act. I liken it, you're gonna like this, Jonah, I liken it to Hamlet, in that when I studied, I went to drama school.
Bringing out the big guns.
We're all thinking it, and I've always hated the character of Hamlet, and I've always loved the character of Laertes, and from my vantage point, it's like Hamlet is like this completely inactive character who cannot like make a decision, and then Laertes is like his total foil. And so it's and the thing where we're there for our own storyline, but we're there as much for our own storyline to exemplify what this main couple just can't seem to do. Yeah. I think it was that's made it really fun.
Damn. But what I'll also say, bringing it back to reality, is that I also think it's nice, especially when I tell my friends who are single or looking, is I'm just like, there's no such thing as like a bad sign or a red flag. Like, you never know how something's actually going to unfold. There's no perfect way. So for me, it's like, yeah, it works for Jessie and Hank, but also Milo and Wendy find their happy ending too. So there's no rules, baby.
Yeah.
When we wrote it, we had Hamlet in mind. We were talking about that for years. What I'll say though is it that they move quickly, or that Milo and Wendy move for years? I mean, there was a day in the edit where we were like, do we make it somehow look as if they've been dating for like 10 years, like, and they don't age, right? There was like this idea that like they like Hank and Jessie grow old together, and Milo and Wendy are still somehow magically 25, and like, should we date? Should we like that never came to execution, but that was a conversation at one point in the edit.
For the sequel.
Being in New York Part 2. Do it. So much of the dialogue, conversations, and arguments in the film felt very like natural and organic. Was there a lot of improv, or was it mostly all scripted? I was just wondering about that, because it felt very natural.
What do you guys remember? How do you guys remember going down? I'm curious.
I remember a lot of improv.
There's a lot of it.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think that I can like sort of like pinpoint percentages of who had improv and who didn't, because we were looking back at the script, and it's shockingly like, so Wendy's lines are pretty much 99% to the book, I would say. Kat, I would say your lines are almost like 98% off book, which we love.
Hey, if you're happy, I'm happy.
I would know they're in the movie. I think for the exception of your first scene, which was the apartment scene, which we love that scene. And when we were just like, okay, because we're just starting to work together, we should just use the instruction book and then we'll go from there. Brian, I feel like we would always sort of, I think maybe you're at 60%, because we would sort of do it and then you would sort of find some new life into the words and bring something really fun to that. And then Jaboukie is probably 40 or 50%, in the sense that he definitely, there are certain lines that are like, get this line, like actions speak louder than captions. And, in between relationship doula for women, I don't remember if that was improv or not, but those kind of things, it was a mixture. And then certain actors, when they come in, Arturo Castro shockingly really wanted to do it to script, which surprised me, because I, having worked with some comedians, in the movie, I was like, oh, I think comedians just love improv. And then Arturo was like, no, I want to do it to the book. And I was like, whoa, okay, and we'll do that. And so
you're like, whoa, you want to use my words?
You want to use the words?
What's wrong?
And then like Jerry's very to the book, and then of course Alex Moffat, improv king. I mean, you're not gonna stop Alex from just doing what he does. Yeah. That's my answer.
Yeah, I remember. Well, I remember when there's the dinner scene where like we get into like a little spat, and that was kind of like we're just gonna kind of go off we're gonna go off book here. We're just gonna kind of like see what happens. And afterwards, I was like,
I hurt his feelings.
yeah, I was like, I didn't like that. That felt bad.
I was like, don't mess with me then.
That's interesting. I didn't feel like any of it felt like it was like forced. You know, like sometimes you can tell when something's improv when it feels a little forced, but I didn't think it felt like that at all. I love that scene you're talking about in the apartment when they both kind of are forced to say "I love you" with the agent. I don't know about forced, but yeah, she kind of coaxes him into
Sandra
it.
James.
Shout out
Sandra
The
James.
best.
Brian and Kat, what were your favorite moments with this couple throughout the movie?
I think we had the most fun when we were having dinner with Milo and Wendy at the Bryant Park Grill scene, when we could just like show them what it's like to be in a fun relationship almost, or like show them what it's like. We just had fun with them.
Yeah, that whole day was really fun. It was late. It was like
overnight vibes,
and
which
then,
always gives you that good like crazy energy that just makes you giggly and excited.
Yeah, and then I think then later that night is like when we're in the background of that one scene, just like ferociously making out. To which I was like, I'm happy that we're doing this together and you're not making out. Like neither of us are just like doing this with some.
It's kind of like in Hamlet.
It's kind of like in Hamlet, yeah. It's like in Macbeth when.
I have actually a quick question to add to that. So you said you were dating before this. Did you take your personal, anything that was personal to you and bring it into the characters, since it was kind of a side-by-side thing?
Yeah, I think in the wedding vows portion, I say something about how he texts, or like I think there's some line about like
he doesn't add new information to the text.
I used to get mad at him, because he'd be like haha, or like just like a text, and I'm like, that is not enough. I need more.
No, it's definitely not.
Yeah, thank you. Allison's on my side. And so I brought that in. It was fun to try and like make him laugh, or just to try and affect each other, I think, through the lines, through the characters was fun.
Yeah, I think this is the most, of anything I think that I've done, this is the most kind of similar to me. And this, which was nice. It was like, I've done a lot of cops and guys with like thick New York accents. And it was just nice to be able to just kind of like, it was easy to play off of, and it was also, I was not, I wasn't as used to kind of working in as much of like the improv space. So whenever we would do scenes together and she was just completely it was so fun to play off of, and it was kind of like it just forced me to be in the I remember we did the scene where we are like, we're gonna move in together, and with Sandra James, I was kind of like, oh, like plan absolutely nothing and just play off of her, which was easy, but it was kind of like, oh, we're doing this on camera, but it quickly fell into just, I'm just gonna follow wherever she leads.
Right on the spot. I love it. Jonah, I legit did not realize that you played Mort until the second time I watched the movie.
Yes, my favorite.
Shout out.
I did a double take. I was like, wait a second. Yeah. Do you think it was important for you to have a memorable cameo in this? And do you think it's a trend that you'll continue in your project, having a cameo?
It was key. It was a transformative role. I spent a lot of time prepping for that one, many years. And that's actually just half my face. It was CG. We got ILM to come in and do some work for that. The way they did Mandalorian. I think it's important to make fun of yourself. And so, lightheartedly, of course. And so I do like the idea of one having sort of Spike Jonze-esque cameo roles in all of my work. Not so much because I think it's like a narcissism thing so much as it's like, I think it's a fun moment for audiences to make that connectivity. And it takes, while you're still in the movie, it still sort of draws your attention. Oh, wait, this is the, whenever I would see directors in movies, I'd be like, oh, that's the director. Like I noticed, I always loved doing that when I watch stuff. And then I also like, Mort's a guy you're supposed to laugh at, not with. And that was the only character in the movie that really, you know, it had no sort of like serious emotional stakes. I mean, Trent's character is a douchebag, but like that's an important scene that needs an important actor. And Arturo Castro is a douchebag, but like again, that's a heavy comedy scene. So it was perfect in terms of like, I'm down to make fun of myself for being 5'8" or 6 or 6'2". And
Hey, you're not 6'2", what?
I'm not 6'2". Well, shoes off, sure, I'm 6 foot, but shoes back on, I'm 6'2". So that was why it sort of worked out that way. It was 2 a.m. I didn't want to call anyone. I was like, we'll handle this here, you know. So that's how it came to be. But I do love that scene.
Love that scene.
It's so good.
I do love that the height was mentioned so often because I feel like I'm 5'7". That's like probably one of my biggest issues with dating is that guys lie so often about their height. So it's
my
so
God.
awesome to see it in this movie. I just love that.
It's truly wild how it's just like the biggest lie and like and like
It's
telling
like
people's
really hard to hide it. Like it's very
Yeah.
obvious if you're not what you say you are.
Yeah, especially if it's over 6
Then
foot.
Jaboukie's Jaboukie's someone who fights. He's always talking about the short kings on Twitter.
Yes, he's a great leading man.
Yeah.
I have a question for all three of you. Do you think that best friends with benefits can really work?
No.
No. It can work for I think it could potentially work for a very short time, but anything longer than once it's like, if it's anything more than just like a short moment, no, don't think so.
Jonah?
I think that it cannot work, but I do think that friends to benefits could work, meaning that you start off as really good friends and then you turn that into something more.
Right.
So that's, you have to make the clean jump, but I don't believe you can do the middle ground.
Definitely not long term.
Yeah, not long term at least. Exactly.
How much fun was it to film around New York City? And do you have a favorite location that you were able to shoot at?
The ferry?
She's kidding. She's kidding.
It was cool. It was just we didn't expect it to be so cold, but it was sick. And the guys on the ferry were so nice. And it was very much, we're making a movie. And they're like, that's awesome. Do whatever you want. So it was a fun day.
I think the subway station when after the party and he sees the ad, filming. Yeah, I mean, I grew up in New York and being at subway stations and then like being with like a camera crew, like actually filming something and having to deal with the subway coming in and when's the next subway coming in, we got to get this in. Okay, now just having to deal with New York in that way was it was so fun. I mean, it's like what you dream about doing. Yeah.
And I would I love the subway. I would say for me it was a moment. It's a scene where Francesca's getting a text message on a bench in Washington Square Park. On that particular day, we had like a 16-foot dolly track. Everyone's watching because they recognize her, or they think they recognize her from some, like they think it's like, is that who is this person? And they see a set and there's like literally tourists being like, can we take a picture? And we're like, do you know what we're like, who do you think this is? And they're like, we want a picture. Like they wouldn't answer like but she had some Stranger Things fans I think show up as well. And so but that was a surreal moment because one, my friend Dante Basco, who actually gets a shout out in the movie, he played Rufio in the film Hook. He was nearby, so he showed up to set, and we have this track and the monitor, and it's 20 degrees outside. We're doing the dolly shot, and everyone's watching. You're in Washington Square Park, and it's a surreal moment where New York, the city, the actual monuments in the city become part of your set, and therefore are now part of the movie. And so, like for that moment in time, that's your set. So, it's that for me was my favorite. It's just outside and you're like, wow, you're on a stage, you're not on like an apartment. You're like, oh, like literally if I want to go walk around the set, I'm like just where I've hung out every single, summer growing up.
Yeah, the set is the streets. I love that.
Yeah.
Allison, did you have
So this is
you wanted to? Okay.
probably our last question, unless Josh comes up with something else in the meantime. But so the very end of the film is definitely a lot more cynical than the rest of it. Yes. I was definitely surprised to see that, and I was wondering why you chose to close it with a bittersweet ending instead of putting them as a long-term happy ending. Or do you think they'll get back together after the film? And I mean, the jokingly dating in New York too, or yeah,
Danny too. Trust me, it was a tough decision to make, and it was like it felt more real to me. I didn't think those characters were going to immediately get happily ever after. Hank and Jessie, 100%. They've had a nice trajectory. They've worked out their shit. They've been honest with each other. They like each other. Milo and Wendy are so zigzag that I was like, how do we do this in a way that, some people are really responding to that ending in a positive way, and some people have their takes on that ending. and I love it. I'm here for that. Like, that's what we're here for. I think it's supposed to be funny. It's supposed to be funny. Now, do I think they stay together? No. We actually got an email from someone who watched the film and he loved it, and he lives in New Jersey. His name is Brian. Shout out Brian. And he was like, I need to know how these characters end. And I was like, well, and he's like, by the way, when that little app notification came up, is that because one of them gets an app? And I was like, I guess back on the app, and I was like, yes, you nailed it. And if you look closely, the home screen is Milo's home screen. So that phone background is, of course, from the opening sequence. It's the same one as him, same app arrangement. So the idea is that Milo's phone pops back open. And actually, sorry, it's Wendy's phone. Wendy's phone pops back open, and she re-downloads MeetCute, and she gets the little app. So it's sort of up to you, to decide.
I mean, I did like that. It made it more. It just made it had more thought to it than just the easy way, I guess, that anybody could have gone. Just being like, oh, they're happily ever after, whatever. Like, they just worked out miraculously everything. But
I think it's emblematic of like what is successful about the movie. It's like, it's this fairy tale thing, but it's also grounded in this kind of what's the modern flair of it. And like in the, back in the day, it just would have been the happy ending and they walked into the, the sunset together. But they're, it's this modern thing of, no one has a job. I mean, back when it was like you worked at a company for your entire life, and now no one has a job for longer than like 3 months. And that's just kind of, I think it speaks to the nature of the film, really. My mom did call my mom's been reading like the, IMDb reviews and stuff. And she was like, and a couple of people just hated that last, these two people just were so upset by it.
I
was like, better to be upset than feel nothing.
That's true.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah. Any way you look at it, it's a very memorable way to close out the film, I think, because it's different. It's not just like, oh, the happily ever after bye. Like, It's a little more thought put into it.
Agreed.
And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to make people think with this film.
Hamlet.
Hamlet. It's all Hamlet.
All
At the end of the day, it's all Hamlet.
When you think about it.
When you think about it.
Dating in New York, aka Hamlet.
There we go.
Unreal. I love that.
Did you guys have any like upcoming projects or anything you wanted to plug before we finish up?
I don't know. People can listen to my podcast if they want to have a dating podcast called Seek Treatment that I host with a comedian named Pat Regan.
Okay.
If you want more about modern love.
You can watch season 1 of Bridge and Tunnel is on Epix, and I'm one of the regulars on that show. We have a first season. We're waiting to hear about season 2, but you can check out the first season on Epix.
Cool.
Jonah, what's next for you?
You can find me in Brooklyn, Greenpoint, Brooklyn, walking around, always location scouting. My next film is one set in the restaurant and culinary world about a guy that opens a bar and the critic that sort of slams him a bit. So they sort of fall in love, and it's chef meets You've Got Mail. And Brian and Kat, you guys will be getting a phone call at some point next week. Don't worry about that. Just the download. And yeah, that's sort of what I'm been researching and prepping for next.
Cool.
That
Love
sounds
it.
awesome. My husband actually is a restaurant owner and a bar owner. So
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Oh,
cool.
I would love to talk to him at
I'm
some
like,
point.
where?
Yeah, where?
Yeah.
What is it?
It's a Beachmont Tavern in New Rochelle. It's actually been there for, I think, since like late or early 1900s. I want to say.
Oh my
It's
God,
an old
amazing.
Oh
one.
wow, I didn't know.
Yeah.
You're like, he's
Okay.
300
yeah, he's
years
300
old.
years old.
He's a
He
vampire.
hasn't run it for that long, but yeah.
That's awesome.
Well,
I have
thanks
a
so guys. Thanks so
quick
much
thing.
for time with us.
Yeah. Kat, before we go, I know I saw on social media you have some sort of jazz thing that you do too, right?
Oh yeah, well I do a weekly comedy cabaret show every Wednesday night at Club
Okay.
Cumming, which is Alan Cumming's club in the East Village, and it's the
Oh.
best. Yeah,
Cool.
it's my favorite thing in the world. So yeah, stop by any Wednesday if you guys are in the East Village.
Yeah, definitely want to check
Sweet.
that out.
Yeah, let me know.
Alan Cumming's great too.
Oh, best. No one better.
I actually saw him at Elsie Fest, and I just remember there was somebody that had a sign that literally said "Coming for Alan."
Oh, no.
I think he briefly
Amazing.
had like
Oh,
a
yeah.
line of body lotion called like I'm coming or something that he used to
Are you
hand out.
serious? That's
Yeah.
So
incredible.
ridiculous.
That's
does it all.
genius.
Oh my god.
Awesome.
All right. Well, thank
All
you.
right, thanks so much, guys.
Awesome,
Nice to meet
thank
you.
Yeah, thank you. It's good meeting you guys.
See you
Appreciate it
soon.
so much. And I might reach out to about meeting with your husband to get a little download on his world
Ooh,
about
good
restaurant
call.
stuff.
Absolutely. Feel free to email me.
Perfect.
Cool.
Awesome.
Well, thank you so much for having us and enjoying the film. And we're excited to everyone can check it out in September through IFC, going to theaters and online.
Do you have an official release date already?
I think it's not canon yet, but it's going to be hopefully the 9th or the 24th. I don't know which one yet. But those are the two dates they sort of like are circling.
That's
was
so soon. That's awesome.
Oh yeah,
Very
I know. Like,
exciting.
yeah,
That's
very
really
exciting
amazing.
and yeah, wild. Awesome, guys.
All right.
Amazing.
Bye all.
Thank you. Have a good
Yeah, it
one.
was great meeting you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
I mean, I want Wendy to like me.
I got a date.
All right.
Why are you being moody?
I'm not.
You're being a child.
I'm not being a child.
You're being a child.
Mm-mm.
They're
Think
not a
it's
couple.
amazing
They're
that
definitely
you get
fighting
to,
like a
drive
couple.
around.
Maybe we should stop.
What am I doing?
I can't get Milo out of my head. Do you not want consistent sex without the emotional attachment?
I want that, but I also want the emotional attachment. Only in New York could you make out in front of a bunch of garbage and it's still romantic.
I'm Allison with Josh the Movies, and I'm so thrilled to chat with you finally. So I thought this would be a really cute icebreaker question. So, what is your worst or craziest dating story?
Oh my God. My worst dating story ever would probably be in high school. I'm sure I've had more since then, but this is just like such an epitome, like LA dating story that I just always find it so funny. Because I grew up here, and in high school, I went to like a music magnet where there was like music, dance, theater, all that jazz. And there was one guy who went there who was an actor, and he was like the only, well, we were all actors, obviously, but he was like the only one who had like worked.
Mm-hmm.
Literally. And I remember he asked me on a date, and I felt so excited because I was like, you're a little older and you've been on a show, you had a guest star, you know, it was like so LA. And he picked me up at my house, and I got out of the car right down the street.
he spent the first 2 minutes just going on and on about, he's like on the phone with his agent, and he was,
Oh no.
but like, he was like, sorry, I have all these things. But he was just so rude about it that by the time we got to the corner of my street, my actual street, I was like, I literally just got out of the car and started to run home. I didn't even make it on the date. I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. Like, we were in the car. He was like, we're going to a restaurant I used to go to with my ex. You're okay with that, right?
Oh my
and I was
God,
like,
of course.
and then he was like, sorry, I gotta text my agent really quickly. And it was all in the car. I was like, you're driving, you're doing all these things. Like, oh my God, you might be crazy. And then I just had a full-blown anxiety attack and got out of the car and ran home. And it was not great. Yeah, that was one of my first like actual like dates.
Yeah. Oh my God, that sounds awful. I mean,
Horrible. To get to dinner.
Oh my God. No, I feel you on that. I mean, so one of my worst dates, the guy paid for the date. And then after, and this was after, by the way, he had told me he was like an ex-drug addict and all this crazy stuff that like did not come up before. Wild things. And he like knew all these sketchy people from my high school. This is like only 5 years ago. At the end, he asked me to Venmo my half of the bill because he realized he couldn't really afford it, and he paid for it anyway because he felt like he should. And I'm like, oh no, like what? Like,
no, excuse no. Yeah, I also think some of my worst dates would be dates I didn't know were dates.
Yeah.
Where I was like, oh, oops.
Oh my God.
Now.
Yeah, that sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
So I want to also talk about Milo's doorman, Milo, sorry. Do you think he's too nosy or just nosy enough? Because my doorman in my building, my favorite one, Terry, when I was like making out with some guy outside once, and he handed me a note saying, get a room, trying to be funny. And I feel like Milo's doorman would do the exact same thing. So
100%. I've never had a doorman, so I don't actually know what I live in LA, and you know, my mom has this, I grew up in like a cute little home in mid-city Los Angeles. And I guess like my mom would be kind of like my doorman equivalent. She always seemed to be at the door whenever I was coming home from something. Like I would walk in and she'd be like, where are you? What were you doing? How was it? It's late. Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? Are you drunk? Or you want to get some sleep? Just like all the questions. So I've never had a doorman, so I don't actually know how. And when I lived in New York, I definitely didn't have a doorman. We couldn't afford it. But
you went to NYU,
my like
right?
budget.
You went to NYU, right?
Yes.
Cool.
So we did like the East Village, like little turn a 1 bedroom into 2 bedrooms thing, and me and my roommate at the time. And yeah, so I don't actually know how nosy they are and aren't supposed to be, but I feel like I would actually love if I had like a really beautiful relationship with a doorman if I had one. If that also feels so New York to just like.
It is very New York. I never thought like it's basically like having family here because all my family is in Florida right now. So my doorman is like he's like a surrogate like father, grandfather figure. So
so sweet. I feel like that's like my neighbors here in LA. Like my neighbors are always very like, what's going on? Who's that? It's like the what's the difference between LA and New York? Well, here it is.
Yeah, there's a lot. So my next question is, how much do you see yourself in Wendy? Like in the ice cream scene, do you personally like to try the flavors or you just stick to one?
If I was in that ice cream scene, me, Francesca, with Milo and Wendy, they would be having their like little passive aggressive chat about like all the flavors versus one. And I would just be staring at the flavors being like, I'm going to only pick one and I don't know what it is, but I'm not going to sample anything. I'm just going to pick it. And I'm just going to have to be happy with whatever I picked. Like that's
oh my gosh.
Definitely. And I know that makes me sound like a full psycho, but I'm very picky when it comes to my dating life.
Yeah.
Specifically because like, and I feel like we just talked about this, I like am still one of those people that's like, I'm going to meet someone at a bar or like at a coffee shop, or they're just going to trip me on the street, you know, something organic. And if that like one little moment doesn't happen to intrigue me, I'm kind of like, I'm just like head down.
Yeah.
I also like I'm a very anxious dater. Dating gives me anxiety. I'm not good at it. Yeah, I'm not good at it. So I would probably be like the one trying to pick a flavor, and then I just get so stressed that I would just leave the ice cream shop and be like, I'm gonna get a cookie.
Yeah, that's literally me too.
All together.
Yeah, I feel like with dating apps now, like there's just too much, and I get overwhelmed when people start messaging me a lot, and I'm just like, I need a break. And like you just can't, it's too much at once. Too overwhelming.
Yeah, I've seen my friends on them, and they'll like you're bombarded with options, and everyone's like trying to be punny, and like you're just given all these stats about everyone, like where they went to college, their height, their location, how far away they are from you, and it's just like
they get really close. I didn't realize, like my best friend suggested that I should put in 2 miles or less or something, and I'm like, how are there that many people? How does it know that close to know how far away from someone you are? And I realized like there's a large selection within 2 miles, and you're in New York City. Like it's wild.
Yeah.
So this one is, there's a ton of wacky dating terminology thrown into this movie. You have a freelance relationship, foghorning, targeted offensive orbiting. Sorry. What is your favorite of these terms that are invented by the film, and have you experienced any of these firsthand?
Oh my God, this is a hard question because I have to remember what all these mean. Targeted
offensive orbiting
was like where you break up with someone but they still follow you, right?
Yeah, it's like it was something that they still posted everything on Instagram about, like what you did when you were in that relationship. Like they would go to a bar you used to go to together just to like shove it in your face and be like, hi, I'm with a new person at this bar, like screw you.
Yeah, that's the one I think I like most triggered by. Because obviously social media is such a big part of just like our jobs now, that I'm kind of always like, if I've like gone on a date with someone and then they stop following me, I'm like, if I like hang out with someone and they like stop following me, I'm like, oh God, like it's just the whole follow, like whether they're in your like social media orbit versus your reality is the most triggering thing that I think our movie talks about, because it really is such a big part of relationships. Like, are you followed? Are you tagged? Are you like, is it on your Instagram? Is it not? What's real? What's fake? I think like, we also just talked about that line that Jaboukie has, like actions mean more than captions, like that, those like terms, like it's funny, but it's also so funny because it's so ridiculously relatable. You're like, oh, that stings. I have to uncomfortably laugh about it now.
I know. So much of this movie, I was just like so cringe thinking about everything that is happening. So like everything I've had happen before. Mm-hmm. And it's crazy how dependent we are on all these things now that weren't even part of our lives. Like, I don't know, like 10 years ago, like one of my first jobs, I was a social media designer for Bud Light. And like, we were designing Instagram imagery before Facebook. Sorry, it was for Facebook, but before Instagram even existed. And I thought it was so ridiculous. I'm like, at the time, like, oh my God, we're spending like hours and weeks planning a calendar of images to design and like mini ads. I never knew it would get as far as it is now, that it's like ingrained in your life and you can't like exist in the world without being on your phone on social media every 5 seconds.
Yep. You gotta like, it's so stressful.
Yeah.
It's so much. And then you have to like look at like the amount of like anxiety the like produces.
Oh my God.
That's so interesting. And you're like looking through your photos and you're like, I've done this when I've been like, when I was stuck on like a plane or something, like on the tarmac, I've just like gone through Instagram just cause you're like stuck. And I remember thinking like, it was so like obsessing at one point, right when I started acting. So like, that was right when I got like my check mark and all that stuff on Instagram, and my whole world changed. And I remember being like, wait, why did these people like this photo more than this one? This one has more likes than this one. Well, why didn't they like it more? And looking back, I was like, how did I have friends? Like, how is anyone okay to be around me?
Oh my God.
You like hear yourself, you're like, oh my God, this is so crazy how much this matters and how much I care about what people I've never met are saying about a picture of me that I've like willingly put on there. But it also makes perfect sense. It's crazy how much it is in our lives now.
It really is. And they're removing the likes, or at least they're phasing it out slowly.
good.
That
Yeah,
changed the whole perception.
They should. It's crazy. And I get that, like, I watched that documentary about social media, and I get that they
Yes.
like
The one on Netflix,
which-
right? I was like, yeah.
went through all the Netflix docs during quarantine. Yeah, I watched that. I know that like their intention was that it would be this uplifting thing. They never saw a route where it would be negative, but alas.
Of course. It's crazy just to think of how much money and how much everything is centered on what your persona is online compared to what you're actually doing in your real life. It's really ridiculous, but
yeah. My social media does not reflect my real life at all.
No,
I look way cooler on social media.
It's always like that. You only put the good parts up. You never put the bad ones.
Yeah, I like the cheeky stuff. Like I actually look maybe funny and cool. Like I do things. I'm like on my couch most days. So
yeah,
really not
on that. So there was so much chemistry between Wendy and Milo. I was wondering how close you became with Jaboukie after filming this, and are you still really good friends?
I adore Jaboukie. I was literally just texting him because I got all like tongue-tied in one of our other interviews and said something wrong. And I was like, oh my God, did I just offend Jaboukie? So I was like just texting him how sorry I am and how much more stressful this whole like experience would be if I didn't know that I got to like have him in my corner, like have him doing like certain press outlets with me and like wasn't alone. And that was the same for like set. I mean, I don't know. This could be said for the whole cast because they were also amazing, but because most of my days and work were with Jaboukie, like set can be like so hard. You have long days, you're in a bubble, you're like exhausted, you're working outside in cold weather. Like there's just like so much that can go wrong in a day. And it was just so nice to have someone there every day that I could just like make jokes about it with and laugh with. Like he truly is one of the most kind and funny and incredible people. And I cannot wait. I know he's having like a big moment right now and I'm just so proud of him. He had his like New Yorker article. He's working with Issa Rae. Like he's just killing it. And I couldn't wish for anything more for a better person. Like he's the creme de la creme of co-stars.
Yeah, he seems like a great person. Actually, I was really excited because I saw he had a cameo of Only Murders in the Building that he randomly appeared and I did not expect that. But he had like a whole episode.
What?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm allowed to be talking about this yet because it might not be one that's actually out yet. I might have to edit this out. But he has a whole episode, like maybe or even a 2-episode arc. And I was like, whoa, like I did not expect
I just started that show, so that makes me so happy to hear that. I'm really excited now. He really is just, I adore him. I wouldn't have been able to do this movie without him. He definitely made my performance better.
Yeah.
And I just like only want the best for that man.
Aw, so cute. So I was wondering, why do you think that Wendy and Milo ultimately do not work out? And do you think that best friends with benefits is something that can actually work in the right circumstances?
So, you know what I'm actually learning is I've seen the movie like 3 times now.
Me too.
And I didn't realize me and my mom actually totally missed the part at the end where they say they live happily ever after for like 2 weeks. So I kind of like honestly just learned that they break up.
Oh my God, that's a big thing to miss there.
Well, it's a big little piece of information. My mom was talking about it. My brother was like, yeah, but did you see that part at the end where they like break up? And me and my mom are both like, what? And then my brother was like, there's literally a part right at the end where it says this. And my mom was like, no, that doesn't happen. Because like in Rom-Com, she's like, no, they get together. They're together. And I was like, wait, that's brilliant. Like I was like, whoa, I missed that.
So realistic.
It's super real. I mean, it is and it isn't. It's realistic. So why do I think they didn't get together? I think they're interesting. They're such an interesting couple because they are in a weird way so compatible for each other. But in my opinion, it's kind of like a wrong time, you know? Which is why we always joked about making a sequel, you know, because like I always kind of envision Milo and Wendy as those people that are going to kind of like be in and out of each other's lives for like the rest of their lives, and either as friends or as partners or whatever it fits in that time span. But I always just found them to be like yes, right in that moment, but ultimately like kind of wrong time. So when I saw that they actually don't stay together, I was like, wow, that's amazing. Does good on Jonah, but does Friends with Benefits work? I mean, I think in any relationship, you have to have such a clear communication with the other person. So if something like Friends with Benefits is something that you're after, and that's something that you want to pursue, that's great. That's what you want, and that's where you're at right now in your life. I just think that if you're going to do that, then you have to make sure that the other party, that the person like very vividly understands that, but it understands and is also okay with that, and kind of on par wants the same things. I think any type of relationship, whether it's monogamous or friends with benefits or just casual sex, can go so wrong if there's not a clear communication between both partners. So yeah, if you're good at talking and expressing your feelings and being honest, Friends with Benefits could probably work for you.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm all those things, so it would probably be the worst choice for me.
Well, on the realm of talking about rom-coms, I wanted to know what your favorites are, and have you used any of your favorite classics to inspire you in terms of creating Wendy's character?
One of my favorite rom-coms, I think it's rom-com. It's definitely a rom-com. It's definitely a rom-com. Is Crazy Stupid Love.
Oh, I love that movie. I think I went to the premiere for that actually 10 years ago.
That's so cool. That's so cool. That's really cool. I'm really jealous. Okay.
Sorry.
Wow. That's so amazing for I'm kidding. Could you imagine if I just shut down? Yeah, no, that's one of my favorite rom-coms. I loved so many different stories in one. And oftentimes I feel like movies can really screw up that algorithm of like, we're playing to a bunch of different characters having these different journeys, but this one just did it so beautifully. And I'm obsessed with Steve Carell. I'm obsessed with Emma Stone and Julianne Moore, like Ryan Gosling, like the entire cast is just Kevin Bacon. They're all just so good. And I definitely, I think unintentionally tried to like kind of make, at least in her, how direct she is, make Wendy a little bit kind of like Emma Stone's character, but only in that one mere moment where she's like, I'm gonna go sleep with the guy from the bar. Like the guy from the bar has these like, and so I think like I definitely tried to incorporate her a little bit there. I definitely tried to use inspiration from her from Elaine from Seinfeld, which isn't a rom-com, or it is, depending on how you watch it, I guess. They're in love with themselves in the show. So, and another one of my favorite rom-coms, oh my God, there's so many I've watched that I just like, can't even think. Obviously the classics, like when Harry Met Sally, like You've Got Mail, all of those, like those are obviously big inspirations, and there's plenty of homage in the movie to those, but Crazy Stupid Love is definitely one of my favorites. And I think all the women in that movie, I definitely tried to either knowingly or unknowingly connect them to Wendy.
Okay, gotcha. So this is probably your last question, so I'm gonna try to rush this as quickly as I possibly can. But yes, I'll talk very fast. Sorry, I talk a lot too. It's all good. So I love your earlier work in Wireless on Quibi, and Yes, God, Yes, and of course Stranger Things. So super excited to see your name and the Tribeca details in the films for release. I just wanted to ask you if you have any super exciting things that we should be looking out for, and what your favorite role was. And I know we have like probably a minute to talk about this, but just really quick, shout out your upcoming stuff.
Oh God, super exciting things to look out for. I don't actually know. I like fully blanked on my entire career really quickly. Because now we have a time. We need to go over there. Well, Wireless just got a re-release on Roku channel, which is really exciting. And so I'm really happy about that, because hopefully it means more people will see it. Because I know that
it's a movie or a show. Because I feel like when I watched it, I thought of it as a movie, but less than a show. Like it seemed like a broken down movie.
It kind of is, but it's because Quibi had that cool thing where you could like switch your phone in 2 different ways. And I don't know how they've adjusted that to Roku. I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet on Roku, but I'm just so happy that more people are going to get to see it, because that script really did just move my soul. It was so well written, and Ty Sheridan is an amazing actor and great co-star as well. And so I'm really excited about that. Outside of that, I mean, we are just kind of hopefully like getting to the tail end of this pandemic. So hopefully I'll have more exciting things to announce soon. A lot in the works, but we're kind of working within the realm of like still basically being in a pandemic and trying to just like move forward safely and seeing what that looks like. As far as my favorite role, oh my God, I've been very lucky. I really have enjoyed every single role I've gotten to do. You know, I really don't know if I have a favorite yet, because they all are kind of at the same level. Like it was like, you know, like Haters Back Off, such a unique experience for your first job, like, and a great cast and great creatives and so much freedom to play and make Emily cool. And like, Yes, God, Yes, just Karen's an iconic writer.
It's one of my favorites of last year.
Oh my God, I read that script and I was like, I need to be in this movie. And and then like I just got to make so many great friends on that set, and then obviously Stranger Things. I mean,
yes, obviously.
I was like, I don't even care. I don't care what the role is. Put me in the show. I need to be in the show. And so that was just like an iconic experience, because it's one of the biggest shows in the world, and
of course,
very intimidating. And then, you know, Wireless was cool because it was like a different platform and a different way of making TV. And obviously dating is an incredible experience because it's my first like leading role. And Jonah was so kind to let me like really make Wendy my own character. So I don't really know if I have a favorite yet, because they've all just been really amazing experiences where I've learned and grown and hopefully become a better actor each time. Who knows? I could just be dying. I could be a dying.
You're a great actress.
Who knows?
Okay, well, I think we went over like a minute or two, but I had such a great time chatting with you. And I can't wait to see all the new stuff that you're going to put out after the pandemic starts to hopefully improve and we don't get stuck in another lockdown. So, yeah.
No, I hope not. From our lips to God's ears, you know, like no more lockdowns, please wear a mask, get vaccinated.
Yeah,
do all the
definitely.
Things
do that, guys. Whoever's watching this, whenever it goes live.
Yeah. Do what you got to do. Wear a mask, get vaccinated. That's what you have to do.